Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Community Exchange podcast, where we talk to friends old and new about their careers and the future of media industry. I'm Matthew Scott Goldstein, better known as
MSG.
Thank you, Gabe. As always, the Community Exchange podcast is brought to you by OpenWeb, the company building a safer, fairer, and more trustworthy internet. Now we have a great conversation for you with Gabe. Okay, Gabe, before we talk about the industry and Yahoo, and you're going to tell me about your shirt later, let's talk about how you started in ad tech.
Yeah.
What year was it? Where were you? How did it all come about?
Yeah, it was a long time ago because I'm kind of old now. But
Wait, how old are you?
44.
That's not old, Gabe.
Feels it.
That's not. You know how old I am?
No, I don't even want to say.
58.
Well, you're looking great.
Thank you, sir. You have to say that, but go ahead.
So I will skip over my software engineering career, which
Please. No one wants to hear about that.
But the triggering was the 2008 crash. There was no more business, and I had to reevaluate my life. I looked around.
And you were living in California at the time?
I was living in the Bay Area, California,
Okay.
near San Francisco. I looked around. I decided, I'm tired of doing startups on promises that end up failing. Maybe that's my journey, but what's an industry that's a growth industry that actually deals and makes money? And I thought, well, advertising.
Finance.
Yes, but I'm not a finance degree holder.
Okay.
Where can I apply my software skills? And it looked like ad tech was the answer. And so I actually went about searching for
It always blows me away when someone, and this was 14 years ago,
Yeah.
16 years ago, had the foresight to actually see ad tech as a growth industry and think about it that way.
Well, being broke is a big motivator.
Okay, good point.
So RockYou was looking for some.
And what is RockYou?
RockYou at that time was a social media application development company. So they made little games and widgets for Facebook and MySpace back then, which
Okay.
seems silly and small, but their reach was massive. I mean, hundreds of millions of users and all that. And they had no ad platform, no ads at all in the apps at that time. And so they were thinking, maybe we should put some ads in these things. And they were looking for a product manager and a software lead. You had to do both.
Which you had the skill set, and not that many people had that skill set to do then.
Well, I had the software skill set.
Okay.
I made up the product skill set. I just said, yeah, I can do product. What's that? I mean,
Well, product in 2008 in ad tech was easy. Now it's a lot harder.
Perhaps it was. So I got the job through the interview, got the job. And I worked there like almost a year, I'd say, doing social media ads. So this involved building a small ad server, small in like its code base, but its reach and scale was massive.
But you still built it.
I worked with a team that built
Okay.
it. My special focus was the front end, the ad units themselves. And so I got involved in making social ads that incorporated the user data we had. So your name, pictures, friends' names, things like that. Now illegal. Into the ad creative, saying, hey, your friends are talking about you. Click this ad and go.
That's kind of cool back then.
30% click rates, huge close rates on selling products afterwards. It was a journey. It involved also building up an operations team for ad ops and
How big was your team back then?
8 people.
Okay.
And
Small compared to today, which we'll get into.
small compared to today, getting off the ground, concepts like direct and things I didn't know, IO insertion orders, what's that? How does the process work? So I got my teeth cut at RockYou doing that sort of work. There was a moment when I was poached by another company. So there was a particular type of creative back then. Undertone was making it really popular. It was an expandable ad.
Okay.
And these didn't work on Facebook because of the security framework that Facebook uses for its Facebook applications. So a company called VideoEgg was getting very popular.
And I remember VideoEgg.
Yeah, they had the little bird and the egg thing, and
Okay.
they made full page takeover mini sites out of an ad. So 3, 2, 1, and it expanded, and you engaged. They were doing great, and they really wanted to expand into social media, but because of Facebook's limitations, their ad wouldn't
Okay.
expand. I love challenges. When I hear something can't be done in tech, I'm always like, no, it just hasn't been solved yet. So I put my mind to it.
Right. And VideoEgg reminded me of Poindexter. Remember the fat boy, the tomboy, and the other ones? Okay,
Yes.
sorry, I digress. Go ahead.
You have it exact. So I put my mind to it, and short, story, it was solvable, and I solved it. And funny enough,
There you go. Name of the podcast, Gabe. He can solve anything.
so the head of engineering for VideoEgg at the time, he thought I was lying. He straight up called me a liar because, RockYou's like, hey, VideoEgg, we can run your ads now. And he stepped in and he's like, my team tried. We couldn't do it. It's not doable. This guy's just, tricking us. And I had to get on a screen share and demo.
They didn't even have screen shares in 2009.
Oh, we had them.
Okay.
And prove to this guy named Derek that that the ad would expand, that everything would work. And when he saw it, he was like, I apologize. I take it back.
And where is Derek today?
He's at Airbnb.
Okay.
Doing great.
I was saying he did okay.
He did fine. So like the weekend after that, I get a call from Derek, and he's like, "Hey, can I take you out to coffee to apologize? Apologize
To
again."
apologize.
It wasn't to apologize. He's like, "You're wasting your time at VideoEgg. You should come at RockYou. You should come to VideoEgg and run our client side ads team." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
Big raise, sure.
Sure. At that, let's do it. So I went to VideoEgg. Now I thought I'd be doing ad stuff, but brief detour. As it turned out, someone left and I had to take over server engineering. So instead of doing front end ad stuff, I got there and I was doing ComScore, data syncs, DMP type stuff.
Did you mind doing that?
Yeah, it wasn't my wheelhouse. That was a little deeper in engineering.
But it feels like you could figure it out, though. You're one of those
I'm always
people.
up for a challenge.
Okay.
And that one was running the teams as short amount of time as I could and finding a more senior server engineer lead that I could get to swap me out, which I did. Then I looked around and said, "What's your next biggest problem?" And they said, "Well, we just got notice from Microsoft that the Atlas ad server," which they were on at the time, I know,
it's like
Facebook's
down memory lane.
Facebook's ad server now. It's end of lifing at the end of this year. It was April. It's at the end of this year. It literally will shut off. Like the network calls, the APIs will all be off. And we run, a large sized business on it. We need to migrate to a new ad server by the end of this year. And I'm like, that sounds challenging, but let's do it. So we gathered a big team across the company, evaluated ad servers, ended up picking DoubleClick.
Wow. What else is there to evaluate, right?
You'd be surprised.
Okay.
In fact, about halfway through, because of so when we picked it, then the contracts with Google and the pricing turned out to be very non-preferential. So we ended up switching sometime a quarter later to AOL's ad server. AdTech, it's now AOL.
Okay, I remember that.
Remember the German company AdTech?
Yes, I remember it.
Yeah. So we switched.
NetGravity, AdTech, all those companies.
So we switched to them halfway through this migration, and then it had to still be done because there was a drop dead date by the end of December, which is Q4, which is the most profitable part. VideoEgg at the time was majority direct sold, like it's direct campaigns scheduled in ad servers. It's not this programmatic stuff. It was hairy. I will say it was probably the most stressful project I've ever had. I did sleep under my desk for about 40 days.
No way.
I did.
Were you married then?
I was not. I was young, single, just, I could do it. But it was one of those.
Have you ever done that again?
Heck no.
Okay, good man. Good man.
No. I don't recommend it to anyone out there. I think that's not a very healthy approach to work. But I was committed, right? And it had to happen. And there were moments in November where like the data model wasn't lining up. We couldn't stitch campaigns. We had to run the Atlas ad server concurrent to the new one and sort of phase them in, right? Transition. And data wasn't lining up. We thought for moments, me and the head of data, Dusty Gronzo, who's also at Yahoo now, we thought like we might have ended the business. Like if it
didn't work, the business was over.
Yeah, we would have no accounts receivable. The whole thing would collapse, and that would be that. But it didn't. It got stitched together. The problems got solved. We lost $0 in the transition. The customers didn't even notice. Billables went out. Money came in. It was the best year of VideoEgg's cycle so far. And it was an amazing success. However, I made a commitment to the CEO, Matt Sanchez, also at Yahoo now.
That's where you met Matt Sanchez?
That's where I met Matt Sanchez.
He was the CEO of VideoEgg?
That's right.
I did not realize that. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I made a bet with him that I would accomplish this migration of ad servers by, I think, like December 1st or something, because we didn't want to go right to the end. And it was done on like December 10th. And
he's like, you failed.
I failed. I lost the bet. And the bet was whoever loses has to shave their head in front of the company. And so somewhere out there, there's a video.
Okay. Are there pictures and videos you have?
Somewhere out there. I don't know if it's on the public, but it's certainly on the Slack channel.
Producer Andrew, find that.
Of me and
This is why you had to tell the VideoEgg story.
I had long shoulder length hair back then. Beautiful curly hair in my youth. And I had to, in the lobby, in front of the whole company, have someone shave it right off.
Matt Sanchez didn't shave it for you?
No.
You got a professional?
He was like, you can be out of the bet. You did it. No. I'm like, no, a bet's a bet, man. Like, I would have made you do it. although in retrospect, it's better I did it anyway, since he was the face of the company.
Yes.
But it was like a pent up release. I mean, everybody worked so hard on that project, and so
That's crazy story.
it was a fun time. So after that, I looked around. What's the next big problem at VideoEgg? And it was like, we're buying 6 apart. We're converting to this media company, own media and operated. Once you own media, you have to fill.
I remember all these names. They're all coming back to me.
Yeah. So 6 apart, huge blog network, Ben Trott, who's also at Yahoo now. And
I see all the connective tissue here now.
They also eventually became Arena. We went to Arena Group for a little while. But we bought 6 apart. We converted the whole company into Say Media. And Say Media was no longer this sort of like, we rent space on other websites and put your big, beautiful creative studio designed ads on them. Now it's, we own the publishers themselves, and we build a CMS for them.
Okay.
And we put ads in it. Now, when you hold supply, right, you have moments where you're not sold through. And so you need to do indirect. So I started to get into.
And what year was this about?
2012,
2012. Okay. And who's running these companies now?
VideoEgg was sold and is no more. Say Media is no more. 6 apart went with it.
But was it, did Troy Young come in here somehow?
Troy was there from the beginning.
At Say?
At VideoEgg.
Troy was at VideoEgg also?
Troy was the president. Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's how Troy and Matt Sanchez know each other from VideoEgg, that then became Say Media.
That's right. And then Hearst. Which I did not go to Hearst, but you'll see, I took a different path. So I got involved in OpenRTB, in indirect. I loved it. It was like, this is cool. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Especially with your engineering background.
With my engineering background, it was such a sweet spot. I loved creative studio tooling. I loved process optimization for ad ops. The direct process had interesting bits.
It's boring compared to programmatic.
But compared to programmatic, and just that you could sit with your team and figure out.
And you could pull levers and move the needle.
Pull levers and change dials. And yes, lose money quickly, but make money quickly. I was hooked. I mean, it was great. So I did that for a while, and I was really proposing.
And the hair's grown back by then, right?
The hair was slowly growing back, although I was dating my now wife, and she didn't ever let me get long hair again. So that was it. Never had it again. Plus, I can't lose it in a bet this way.
Yes.
So, I was proposing to the company that we get further into this programmatic thing. I mean, especially watching like AdMeld at the time and others like going huge. It seemed big opportunity, but the company's alignment was very focused on a publishing system and premium direct advertising. So I wasn't a match with the strategy. I was working with a lot of publishers that were partnered to VideoEgg and then Say Media, such as Curse, which is the opposite of Bless, which was a hardcore video game portfolio.
That I remember.
The Tableau brothers. And Franck, one of the brothers, came to me and said, look, they're not into, we were like friends in San Francisco, and I would, would complain about things to him, and he's like, why are you doing it then? Like, you're on the right track with this programmatic stuff. Why don't you come to Curse? You can be VP of monetization. You can head up the monetizing efforts. We don't really have direct. You'll get your own team. You'll be unblocked. Do all the things you want to do in programmatic.
This is dangerous. Gabe, go wild, basically.
Yeah, and I'm like, yes.
Bring it on.
So I switched to Curse, and oh my goodness. Like said, Curse was the largest at the time, the world's largest hardcore video game portfolio of websites. So good traction. But video games was not an industry vertical that direct was very interested in. So they were like 2%, 3% sold through on direct. All the money was indirect. It was programmatic. And they had mastered the art at the time of the pass-back chain.
Okay.
And if those of you watching know, I'm sure you do, if you're in ad tech, you remember the pain of the pass-back chain.
The waterfall, right?
The waterfall. There were 8 indirect partners, the usual suspects, PubMatics and OpenX and Index Exchange, et cetera. And they were all linked one to the next in 4 tiers by floor pricing. So you call all 8 of them one at a time with a $2 floor, a $1.50 floor, all 8 of them, a $1 floor.
Very efficient.
Oh my goodness. You'd land on a Curse page and the website would start loading the ads and it would just go like, and then the ads would eventually pop in and they would run. It was so bad. So the main goal was to convert that, to change that passback method, but there was no alternative at the time. in talking to, now this is just my recollection, there are a number of companies that claim to be the first in header bidding or that different methodology.
Well, Ari Papara is writing the book. We'll find out from
We'll find out from Ari. I agree. Like, well, that'll be the definitive. I am not the definitive. I can only say in my experience, I recall first OpenX having a type of tag that allowed you to call it outside of a passback chain and receive
Remember what year that is now?
2014.
2014, okay.
That's my recollection now. I quickly took that design, which was quite a simple change, right? Instead of I call you through the network call, you show an ad, or you call another network call, that's passing back. Instead, I call you, you give me back a bid and the ad to show if I accept the bid. That's the fundamental difference. When I described that to Rubicon then, now Magnite or AppNexus or Index Exchange, all of them very quickly designed a tag for Curse. We were, again, largest in our vertical. I had that kind of access. It wasn't a big technical change on their end. So I was able to very quickly, by early 2015.
Right, because I don't think the header bidding and the wrapper wars really happened until early 2016, I believe.
Correct. Yeah, and we'll get right there.
Okay.
I'm quite involved.
Because I did some homework recently. Go ahead.
Yes, this was before there was a thing called header bidding.
Yes.
These were just... people use different names. It doesn't even matter the different ways they called them, but a different tag. And like Curse was getting them because of our position, but other pubs couldn't get them yet, stuff like that. But I had a whole suite of them from almost all of the partners by early 2015. And being the software engineer previously, I had no engineers.
And there's not too many people who were software engineers doing what you're doing, right?
No, software engineers to this day, sadly, but certainly then, they tend not to find ad tech an interesting field. They're more interested in, traditional software, cutting edge areas. Nowadays, AI. Back then, I don't know, machine learning, and heck, even apps. Apps was huge back then. Everybody wanted to make an app and get rich, and startups. So
I digress. Let's get back to that.
Very difficult to find software engineers. So I did it myself because I was one. I programmed the first wrapper at Curse, it's just a JavaScript framework. Later, it was called a wrapper.
2015.
And it not only fundamentally changed the way that the pages loaded, because everything moved to async. And I will not belabor technical points on this show, but they are fascinating for those interested. It changed the entire way that the ad system worked, from blocking JavaScript tags to asynchronous. The pages rendered whole seconds faster. So the community, which was rabid at Curse, was super happy.
Wow.
The traffic went up instead of down with a better ad system. But because you could call all the different indirect buyers not at exactly the same time, but concurrently or nearly at the same time, and get bids back and pick the highest bid, just that fundamental change was like a 37% lift on revenue.
Big bonus that year for Gabe.
It was a good year.
Yeah.
Plus the pages load faster. You get more traffic. You can turn things on and off more easily because you don't have to hunt down where in this giant chain what ad showed from whom. And you get all this metadata from the response. You get the creative ID, the DSP ID, the seed ID, the price, the industry segments, maybe, like all this stuff in the OpenRTB protocol. And you can then ask the SSPs for more data. Hey, we want other things. And you can start sending more data to them in real time, like floor prices, which we implemented an adaptive flooring system that I built back then. That raised revenue. It was just like revenue. Ultimately, it was about a 50% increase in revenue by going with header bidding to from the passback chain. Same buyers, same audience, same layouts.
Way more efficient.
I was loving it. People were extremely interested because of Curse's position, as well as, again, it's small to mass media companies, but biggest in our vertical. As I was doing these things, it caught on, and
you became a little bit famous, right?
I became known, let's say.
Known. Okay.
And as part of that knowing, I believe this is around when we met.
In
2015, 2016.
Yes.
And you suggested that I talk to a group of other publishers that met in New York.
Was it one of the roundtables?
It was a roundtable, but I call it the syndicate because I like that name. But yes, this gathering of mass media companies.
And we've had 36, 35 to date.
Which warms my heart.
And all the credit needs to go to Rich Cacapolo.
Absolutely.
At Daily Mail, who was the visionary who knew this would be good for the entire industry.
Which is when I first met Rich.
Yeah.
And a bunch of these other luminaries. And I remember that roundtable was focused on like this emergent tech of header bidding.
We actually called it Rapper Wars.
This was prior to Rapper Wars.
Okay.
This was before Index and
Okay.
others actually got into the business because I was at the publisher side.
Okay.
I was just evangelizing it as an approach. And I remember speaking to the
And
group.
here you go, producer Andrew. This is the history of ad tech we're getting into. We didn't even realize it.
I remember I pitched. It was so exciting for me. I mean, I was very isolated at Curse. I was not in the community of other publishers.
And you're also in San Francisco.
Way
which
out in
made it
San
harder because a lot
Francisco.
of the action all happened in New
Oh,
York.
the action is big time New York. And so I went, thanks to you, and I presented header bidding, just very matter of fact, as a publisher, not a vendor, which was, I think, meaningful to the group. Talked about the lift and the improvements and benefits. And I remember it was a pretty exciting concept. Now, the trouble is that most other companies, as you alluded to, don't have the engineering resources. They don't
Not
have
even
the
close. They don't have.
tech
They don't have the
chops.
you.
They don't have the me. So sure, we love it, but then as soon as they looked into it, it's not normalized. It's not a standard yet. We have to build tech. So it wasn't very much adoption. So I kind of put a pin in that for a second. Back to Curse. I'm enjoying it. I'm thinking we're about to go gangbuster. Let's go start repping new verticals. I was promoting the company.
And you've done it before with saying your
With
history.
VideoEgg.
So,
Yeah, I know this stuff. Let's go let's sign exclusive deals across auto travel. Like I want to take the whole internet, frankly. If it's a 50% lift on standard
Right.
practices, like, let's go. Built up the case. It was exciting to everyone, except at that moment, Twitch swooped in and bought Curse.
Oh.
Yeah.
Twitch, which will be Amazon.
Twitch,
later.
which
Okay.
became Amazon, which owns the whole thing now.
Oh, okay.
And they were not buying it for the media business. They were buying it for the VoIP voice tool, like Skype.
Okay.
So they didn't even evaluate. They didn't really care about the things I was doing. I petitioned to buy out the media business myself. I had backers who were happy to provide the funding. I offered to license it. Every which way to try to keep it and take it. And they said it'll block the deal. You can't.
Okay.
It's done. What you built at Curse, which was at that time the largest solution on the internet for header bidding, is never going to be yours, and it's over.
So then what did Gabe do?
I called you and I said, well, what should I do? I'm stuck. I don't want to go to Twitch.
I sort of remember this a little bit now.
Yeah, I was really, my conflict was, and this is why I alluded in the beginning to, I did a bunch of startups that failed. I had a lot of people saying, we'll fund you, start a company,
Yep.
be a header bidding, solution, right, for the market. I was so terrified of doing another startup.
Scary.
It's scary. It's a lot of, this was other people's money, yes, but like
Still 40 days under the desk.
I was just too gun shy. And at that point, I was looking to get married pretty soon. It was too much risk for that kind of a life. And so I decided not to, but I wanted to go somewhere that I could do this and that it would be aligned with the interest of that company. Because I also didn't want another misalignment where I'm building up something great and then nothing happens. And my recollection is that it was you, MSG, that had the great idea to talk to Andrew Casali.
I don't know.
So, I mean, you don't remember, you don't remember.
No, as you're saying it, it's coming back to me, but
And so you put together a little meet because, I was working with Jordan Casali mostly through our relationship at Curse. And Andrew was the owner, CEO, brother of Jordan. So you made the intro. And when you made the intro, my now wife, she happens to be from Toronto, and we were in Toronto for a family event. And Andrew hits me up, is like, hey, I've heard that you're, looking perhaps to move, and we're interested. We'd like to talk. Maybe next year. This is towards the end of the year. I can fly out to San Francisco. And I go, well, I'm in Toronto right now. Are you available today? And he's like, what?
it was meant to be.
Yeah. And we met that day.
Wow.
And it was an excellent conversation. Index saw the changes.
They saw what was happening.
They saw what was happening. They wanted to go big there. So he said, this is looking really good. Let's just do one more follow-up after I talked to the rest of the team a bit more. That follow-up, he sent me an email a couple weeks later being like, hey, we want to really talk real seriously another time. I'm currently in New York on a business trip, so maybe next week, the week after. I go, I'm in New York right now. Do you want to meet today? And he's like, this is meant to be.
Yeah.
We met that day, hammered it out, made an agreement. I became the head of product for the supply side, VP of product at Index, focused on building the wrapper.
That is, it's amazing. What a great story.
Yeah. And that was the beginning of 2 years, which we could talk more about. I mean, that was awesome time. We built a wrapper. We basically saw the problem that the roundtable identified. We love this tech. It sounds great. We can't build it. We don't have the resources. So Index, under my direction, built out both an engineering.
And you're one of the few people, and from publisher side to ad tech side.
I was a publisher. I knew the publishers.
Right.
I knew the problems and how they work. I knew software. I could run a software team. I knew the operations required to monitor and actually implement on the ad operations, ad server side, this whole thing. I mean, I knew the whole piece. Now, I learned a lot, maybe as just a reflection on career, sandbagging a bit on something you already know. Like, you learn less net new things, but it was the right decision for me at the time. It was incredibly fun. I'll just say it was just straight up fun, because this was the first year. It was so early. We were very early to market. Yes, Prebid existed, PubFood. There were some other wrappers starting to coalesce. Technorati's was out there. Worked with them. The Curse wrapper was still out there, actually. But there wasn't yet a war, because there was so much open territory. Yep. People weren't being mean about it. And we just built a great product.
And what year did you start at Index?
Gosh, 2018 maybe?
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. No, it was before GDPR, 2016, 17.
Okay. And you were at Index for how long?
5 years.
Because I want to get to some of the Yahoo interesting
We're
stuff.
getting there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Andrew's like, this is going to go long. This is fascinating, though. Gabe,
we're
go.
Go. So anyway, go.
Everyone listening at 1.5 speed, I'll speed it up. Go ahead.
We'll go quick. 2 years, the wrapper was amazing. We sweeped the market here internationally. Index Exchanges, the library, I eventually called it, became the world's #1 used wrapper solution for header bidding. Prebid was a solid #2. The Curse wrapper was actually by volume #3. So at one point in time, I had the top 2 wrappers on the top 3 in the world. We didn't charge. It made more money for publishers. Yep. We made record revenues generally just as a participant. It was not a biased wrapper. I'll have to just say that. It didn't do any chicanery with like bid manipulation or anything. On the second year, the wars started. So this is where Prebid and its supporters, Prebid being open source, but it was really AppNexus, Xandr, and Rubicon Magnite, and OpenX, and PubMatic pushing it. They made a lot of claims in market that Index was unfair. There was a lot of tension, some journal stuff. That was less pleasant. GDPR happened. I had to focus on that too. That added a lot of complexity to our industry, and privacy legislation and risks, compliance on consent. But it was an incredible journey. It was magic. 5 years. Ultimately, the industry changed and was starting to get into, again, privacy became more of a dominant theme. Header bidding became a standard. Identity cropped up as like a really big focus area for Index Exchange. And I was still focused on this programmatic yield optimization area. And so also the pandemic happened. That was a lot. I personally burnt out and had a sabbatical for 9 months.
At Index?
At Index.
Wow.
Which was amazing. And big thanks to that company for recognizing how much I needed that. And I was reflecting on that, during that sabbatical with maybe the world's ending kind of vibes. Like, am I doing meaningful work? Do I want to take this moment to do something more concrete with my life? I've always been interested in electrical generation. Don't worry, I won't talk about that stuff. And regenerative designs and, things that are tangible and helps us civilization versus advertising, which does help civilization, but in a bit more, abstract manner. So while I'm mulling all these things over and, it's starting to look like the world's probably not going to end, I'm kind of facing, do I go back to Index? Do I do something completely different? I get an outreach from a colleague who back in the day...
You're one of the few people, it seems like every job you've gotten was sort of serendipity or someone outreaching to you, and it feels like it was also excellent timing on all these.
Since Curse, yeah.
Yes.
Well, even since VideoEgg.
Yes, everything.
Well, heck, you're right. I mean,
everything.
The whole story pretty much.
Like, I'm listening, it's like, that's really, like, not everyone has that story.
No, I'm very lucky for that. And also...
Well, you're also good, which is why.
Good and early in an industry, and put myself in a rare position. So I got an outreach from someone who was at Amazon, and they said, look, Amazon Publisher Services is looking to go heavy, like really expand their focus. I mean, they have great reach, but they have been kind of on idle for a while. They're looking for a head of product, head of operations. Are you interested? I wasn't, because as you recall, like I turned down the Twitch
Yep.
route in, and generally, I will not belabor the point, but I think some companies have outsized market share and power, and I tend not to want to go work for the Goliaths. I do
Like the underdog.
like a little bit of the underdog,
Yeah.
and I like the open internet. I like the free internet. I
Yep.
like all that stuff. So I was reticent, but I had time. So I thought, well, if nothing else, I've heard their interview process is crazy.
Let me just experience
Let
that.
me experience it. I didn't prep or anything, which I'm not gloating. I don't think it's a good idea. I recommend other people do prep. It's quite serious. It was like 9 1-hour video interviews that were very focused with particular types of questions and answers. But maybe
But you also had so much knowledge.
I have all the knowledge pat,
Right.
but and then had training in some areas. But I think partly not needing or wanting or even going after the job gave me an air that maybe
I think that happens a lot.
was very confident
Yeah.
and relaxed.
Like you are now.
Like I am now.
Yeah.
And we had conversations that I enjoyed. They were all smart people. And they came back and said, we'd love for you to join Amazon. And because it was still pandemic, you get to work remote. And
Unlike today.
unfortunately, today.
Yes, unlike
I think
today.
they're going back to 5 days.
Yes.
And I said, why not? Like,
Okay.
when that crosses your desk, like I've heard also on the inside of Amazon is a particular place. I'd like to experience it. So I went. I spent 3 years, 1 month there, heading product and operations for Amazon Publisher Services. Incredible company, incredibly smart people. These are generally the best of the best. Very rigorous training methodology. It's like an MBA. They have a very particular way of running flywheel businesses that interlock on specific processes, which they drill into you and take about a year at least to learn. It's a written culture, which I found incredibly different.
Which I sort of love now.
I think there is a lot of
Yes.
value in being able to write well and articulate.
Because I've been
thoughts.
writing more lately, and as I
Yeah.
write it, it's like amazing the thought process of what you get out there and how much better it is.
It is. And then bringing that to a collaborative group of co-editors, the thoughts
Yep.
really crystallize. And then they exist as an artifact. People can read and,
Mhm.
and take off the shelf later, even if you're not there. I think that's a smart approach. It was hard. It took me about 2 years to be able to write decently. I still will not say I can write well. But I learned a lot. I was able to promote a lot of aspects of the business, not only for the publisher side, but in the Amazon DSP and their broader
And I know
exchange.
what's going to happen next.
What's going to happen next.
Matt Sanchez is going to reach out to you because this is how the story goes.
Yes,
And say,
so-
okay, Gabe,
So I'm busy working at Amazon. Things are pretty good. We're
living in San Francisco,
living in San
all
Francisco,
remote.
trying to move towards, pre-bid, more open standards and embracing the open internet, bringing that Amazon money out to more publishers. And I get a call from Matt Sanchez saying, hey, Yahoo has got removed from, bought
Yep.
out from Verizon by Apollo and is in this huge.
And Matt was at Hearst, and then
Matt
he
was at
came
Hearst.
over to Yahoo, right?
Yahoo.
He was originally running the homepage, I believe, and then he got these other bigger roles there.
At Yahoo?
Yeah.
Yes, home ecosystem.
Okay.
So Matt has a large purview. He's the president. And Yahoo's in a revitalization phase. Like, if you're familiar with Yahoo, and I'm like most Americans, I'm like, I know it exists. I've heard, I don't know a ton about it, but when I did a little research, I realized I used it already. And of course, just very quick back to my childhood. My very first access to the internet was through AOL dial-up.
You and everyone else, yes.
Me and everyone else. And so I've always held just a real
Yeah.
warm place. And of course, San Francisco, it's a huge billboard. It's a famous company.
Yep.
So I was fascinated right off the bat. And then with the revitalization, with the energies, and he's saying, now we're in a position where
And they're also investing in the product.
big time investing in the product. Every property has been turned over. Now it's all revitalized. Every pixel's new, you could say. It's a lot of excitement. And we want energy coming in to revitalize the ad business too.
So then Matt brought you in as
Well, I interviewed with others. Just to
Okay.
be clear, it's not
Okay.
quite so
but if
easy.
you went through the 9-person Amazon process, you had Matt Sanchez there already, I'm sure.
Yeah, I did the interview.
Yes.
I did the process at Yahoo, which was thorough, but not an Amazon one, and was great, and got the role and the offer.
And you are the head of monetization
head
for
of
Yahoo.
monetization.
And I think when you walked in, I said, you are the king of monetization in the world for the open internet.
You said
I said it. You can't say it, but I can
I
say
would
it.
not say
Right?
that.
I can say it. No one else can say it,
it's
but I
quite
can.
humbling.
Okay.
I'm a participant in a community of very large mass media
Okay.
companies doing amazing work on the cutting edge of programmatic and direct advertising.
Right.
And it's like a glove fit. It's a perfect position for me.
It's amazing.
I'm very lucky. Our scale is mass, right? Like,
and you have a team of like over 100 people, I believe.
At this point. So when I first joined, I had a much smaller team, and looking around the landscape, one of the first things that I did was to analyze, where are the people working on monetization? How can we bring more together? Like, my skill set needed to be understood by leadership. Like, I have the product and engineering background, which is not normal. Typically monetization would be an operations role, but within a short amount of time, I convinced everyone to trust me and let me have engineering and product. And then I have operations and ad operations, yield optimization, partners, and then partner groups with legal and all the other aspects that are required to operate. I mean, yes, it's over 100 people now. It takes a large group of people to manage a very large internet presence. We're second largest in the world. 90% of the internet visits once a month or so. The scale is enormous. Now, coming from Amazon, I saw a very, very high scale. Index, SSPs have very high scale, right? They're plugged in
between Index, Amazon, and Yahoo, it's
not scaring me, but it is a lot. And you noticed the back of my shirt.
No, I did not. What does it say?
Watch, I'll show it really quick. You guys can see it.
Can someone read it for me? Monetization, something measured in RPS.
Yeah. Measured in RPS. RPS is revenue per second. And the reason for that is that I find that very large numbers are difficult for humans to comprehend.
But RPS gets to a small number and people.
So typically when I've operated companies, I operate on a daily revenue, right?
Daily impressions.
Daily impressions, daily revenue, RPMs, revenue per 1,000 page views, right? But like, revenue is important. Yield isn't just rate, ECPMs, like effective cost per 1,000 ads, and it's not fill, it's a combo, right, to get you at revenue. If you're optimizing just your rate, you could sell one impression for $1,000 and think you're doing great and make, $1 or whatever. And if you're optimizing a fill, you could be selling everything for a penny. You have to do both to make revenue as your target, as your key performance index. Now, when your daily revenue, which is typically at companies what I focus on, is a big number, people...
You're not going to tell you that's the number, and I'm not even going to ask.
I'm not going to disclose, but a big number that's difficult for humans to comprehend. Yeah. And if they make a change that's a percentage change, I mean, is that a good thing, a bad? If you miss and you lose, $100,000, is that a good or a bad thing? It's hard to say. And so I took the number down. Okay, revenue per hour. It's still too big of a number for really easy comprehension.
I guess revenue per minute was next.
And then really the one that could just absolutely be graspable, because you want it in like a 2-digit number.
Yeah, I get it.
Is down to revenue per second. And then people can.
And it's sort of like a CPM-ish number that probably people can understand and gravitate to. I get it.
You want small numbers.
Yeah.
So it's also cool. Like, we measure our revenue by the second.
Okay.
It also gets people working. Everything that's being done in programmatic, it's 24/7, 365. Money never sleeps. The transactions are always happening. We're running hundreds of thousands of auctions a second, and that's got to be monitored. Everybody, you need on-call 24/7 knock support. Like, monetization is not a joke division. It's a very serious engineering effort.
Okay, so I want to spend a little time. Your history and the background, the journey was unbelievable, blew me away. But I want to spend a little time talking about, where do you think the future of the open internet is going today? Like, I think the word you said was transformative. Is that the word you gave me?
Transformative, which ad tech is always transforming. Anybody in this industry knows there's always changes going on. It's probably part of what we love about it. But let's just put the peg in around, header bidding and then GDPR with privacy. Post GDPR privacy, there was pandemic. Post pandemic, it's sort of the cookie apocalypse, right? Google Chrome moving the cookie away. It's identifiers generally under privacy going away, device IDs, maybe IP addresses with private relay. If I was going to gather those together and say what's happening is there's a fundamental degradation of the foundation of the advertising technology platform.
Of the open internet.
Of the open internet. Thank you. Because,
yes.
Of course, there are companies with walled gardens.
Yes.
They maintain it. They have already.
And Yahoo's the biggest player of the open internet today.
Of the open internet today, Yahoo is the biggest player. I think it could be argued that Yahoo could become a walled garden, right, with our reach and logins and services. But we operate as an open internet company today and are embracing the open internet principles today. This situation is serious, right? The the cookie collapse, the cookie going away got everybody very interested. Now Google delayed and it's tied up with legal processes.
And just to be clear, we're filming this on December 11th, 2024.
Correct. And I know it's airing a bit later.
Yes.
We'll see how
What changed?
this year
Right.
that we're in now is going. It's going to move to user choice. Users will likely opt out of quite a bit of cookies. There's the cookie light now. We think it's already, the cookie's gone in Firefox and Safari. Identifiers are going away. Notions of holding on to it and maintaining the like status quo, in my opinion, are lost. Like let it go. We have to move on
and find something else.
And find something.
And there's going to be investments made in finding something else as well in today's world.
There is and has been and will continue to be. The IAB Tech Lab is already working on a trusted server project, taking privacy sandboxes, broad strokes, but modifying the parts that were highly disruptive to the industry, right? Perhaps there's no reason to throw out OpenRTB as a well-established, long-developed protocol. But yes, we do need to focus on more privacy, less identifiers, and operations that can be done against a very dynamic and continuously changing legal framework. So that work is ongoing. Now, the last part I just want to touch on there is that when all of these changes were really destabilizing the market, what we saw was Google putting itself forward as, hey, why don't we be the creators of the new system,
which is good and bad,
which is great for them to take a leading position. Props to, unlike maybe an Apple or someone, saying, hey, we're going to support privacy, but we're not going to make a suggestion. So I think that was good. I think it was helpful. Now it was critiqued and ultimately not very compatible to the way that things were working. But I've been advocating then, and I continue to advocate that a publisher first, publisher plus independent SSP partnerships first approach, I think for the open internet makes a lot of sense. I think that as the producers of the content of the internet, we have the most skin in the game to produce a solution that can be adopted.
And I think there's a lot of publishers out there who would follow a Yahoo lead once something's figured out.
I think there are a lot of publishers that will follow a lead that is viable,
right,
and that is reasonable, and that is doable, and we need to focus on it. Now, it's hard. Publishing is a difficult business. You're focused on a lot of very, very difficult aspects. To take the extra time to do R&D work on a complicated, highly technical subject area isn't necessarily easy. So I appreciate why it's a difficult ask, but I have a lot of hope. I think that the future of the open internet is not a foregone conclusion. I think that the public wants to have access to a myriad of content, of different voices and opinions, of a route where people can become producers, podcasts like this. And I'm hopeful that 2025, 26, we can really see alternatives that are viable emerge and become adopted.
Okay, so this has gone on much longer than I thought because your journey was absolutely amazing, Gabe. And I'm going to try to end it now, otherwise it'll go way too long. But I have two little questions before we go.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your dog, because you can only come to New York when the dog gets something special, right?
That did happen. So I have my wife and I have a very large German Shepherd. He's about 90 pounds. His name's Bear. He's very floofy.
Of course his name is Bear.
He's beautiful. Of course it's Bear. But he's an intact male guard dog German Shepherd. So you can't really just kennel him anywhere. He takes special watching. We have a trainer and all that. So if both my wife and I are traveling, he has to be watched, and that sometimes takes months of coordinating and an expense. And so, yes, there have been situations where.
And who's watching Bear right now? Your wife?
My wife is watching Bear. So,
you came to New York just for this.
I did.
Conversation because Matt Sanchez told you had to.
That's right. No, that's not true.
No, okay.
I did it for you, MSG.
Thank you. And then one last question, and then we'll end it. Where do you think the open internet is in 5 years? Is it positive? Is it good?
It's positive and good because I believe in people. I think that AI and content generation are headwinds and risks, and we have to be careful about some steps. I think that the economics of the open internet are difficult, and there is the possibility that chunks of it break away and move into a gray or a dark web where people just don't find them really anymore.
I hope not.
But I very much hope not. I grew up with the internet. I think that the idea of free and democratically created content by humans for humans is a worthy investment by civilization. So I'll keep fighting the good fight.
Gabe DeWitt, thank you. Absolutely awesome. I could have gone an extra 30 minutes or an hour, but at some point I had to wrap it up. Maybe we'll do another one down the road. Pleasure having you here. Thank you for coming to New York. Thank you for all the listeners. Give us feedback. Let us know what you think. Thank you.